Yashodanandana Prajajanandana Yashodanandana Prajajanandana Jamuna Tera Vanasari Jamuna Tera Vanasari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Hari Yashodanandana Brajajanandana Yashodanandana Brajajanandana Jamuna Tera Vanasari Jamuna Tera Vanasari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Gaura Jai Vishupad Paramahamsa Pri Radhika Sadhu Stotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charan Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Skandi Biti Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Samavata Bhakti Vrinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Janitai Gaur Primanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurandritam Jaina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamahim Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tvam Sadivam Tadvaitam Savalitam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Sha Hai Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Siti Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayana Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatutamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, that is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyay Namaha. Om Sarabhyay Namaha. Om Sarabhyay Namaha. Mukham karoti vachalam pangom nagayate girim yat kripa tvaham bande Shri Gurum Dinataram. Yat kripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinataram. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. We continue from Canto 2, Chapter 5, entitled The Cause of All Causes. Text number 1818. Text 18. Tattvam Rajas Tama Iti Nirgunasya Gunas Trayah Stiti Sarga Nirodeshu Grihita Mayaya Viboho. Tattvam Rajastama iti Nirgunasya Gunastrayah Stiti Sarga Nirodeshu Grihita Mayaya Viboho. Sattvam Rajastama iti Nirgunasya Gunastrayah Stiti Sarga Nirodheshu Grihita Mayaya Viboho. Sattvam Rajastama iti Nirgunasya Gunastrayah Iti Sarga Nirodheshu Grihita Mayaya Viboho. Sattvam Rajastama iti Nirgunasya Iti Sarga Nirodheshu Grihita Mayaya Viboho. Sattvam Rajastama iti Nirgunasya Gunastrayah Stiti Sarga Nirodheshu Grihita Mayaya Viboho. Sattvam, the mode of goodness. Raja, the mode of passion. Tamaha, the mode of ignorance. Iti, all these. Nirgunasya, of the transcendence. Gunatraya, are three qualities. Stiti, maintenance. Sarga, creation. Nirodeshu is destruction. In destruction. Yeah. Grihita, accepted. Mayaya, by the external energy. Viboho, of the Supreme. Yeah. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Sridham Prabhupada Ki. The Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Yet for the sake of the creation of the material world and its maintenance and annihilation, he accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. The Supreme, can you repeat after me? The Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Yet for the sake of the creation of the material world and its maintenance and annihilation, he accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. Purport. The Supreme Lord is a master of the external energy manifested by the three material modes, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. And as master of this energy, he is ever unaffected by the influence of such bewildering energy. Yeah. The living entities, the jivas, however, are affected by or susceptible to being influenced by the modes of material nature. That is the difference between the Lord and the living entities. The living entities are subjected by those qualities, although originally the living entities are qualitatively one with the Lord. The Lord, in other words, the material modes of nature, being products of the energy of the Lord, are certainly connected with the Lord. But the connection is just like that between the master and the servants. The Supreme Lord is the controller of the material energy, whereas the living entities who are entangled in the material world are neither masters nor controllers. Rather, they become subordinate to or controlled by such energy. Factually, the Lord is eternally manifested by his internal potency or spiritual energy, just like the sun and its rays in the clear sky. Just like the sun and its rays in the clear sky, but at times he creates the material energy as the sun creates a cloud in the clear sky. As the sun is ever increasingly unaffected by a spot of cloud, so also the unlimited Lord is unaffected by the spot of material energy manifested at times in the unlimited span of the Lord's rays of Brahmajyoti. Yeah. So translation again. The Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Yet for the sake of creation of the material world and its maintenance and annihilation, he accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. Yes. So this is in reference to, although the Lord is completely spiritual, transcendental, although having a body, that body is also naturally completely spiritual, transcendental. But when he chooses to descend in the material world, when he comes, when he incarnates in the material world, he accepts these three modes of material nature through what is called Gun Avatar. Gun Avatar. What are the 6 types of avatars? That is one of them. Gun Avatar. Gun Avatar, then Leela Avatar. Manvantara, yes, the Manus, Manvantara. Shaktavesh Avatar. Shaktavesh Avatar. Or Yuga Avatar. Oh. So, one more. Purusha Avatar. Vishnu. So very, in so many different ways, the Lord performs unlimited pastimes through these different avatars. And the 3, what is called Gun Avatar, they all have a different, what is it? Different tattva. Just like on the altar, we have Pancha Tattva. How many personalities are present in the Pancha Tattva? Pancha. 5. 5 personalities are there, but actually they represent 3 tattvas. One of the requirements to take initiation is to know who's on the altar. Who is on the altar? Because sometimes, especially in the Western countries, people are disconnected with, largely disconnected with Vedic culture. So it takes some time to understand who's on the altar, or what's on the altar. And we see pictures, but it's like until we begin to understand the philosophy and the whole question of tattva, pancha tattva, then it it remains vague. So what are the three tattvas for the Gunavatar? Gunavatar, who are the three Gunavatars? Gunavatar K. Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. Lord Brahma, Lord Brahma. What is the tattva? What is the tattva of Lord Brahma? Lord Brahma, he is Jiva Tattva. Yes. One day, any one of us can become Brahma. We have to work. We have to work at it. It's like anyone in any country is eligible to become the president of the country. You just have to go through the process. But nowadays, the process is not the standard process. But so Lord Brahma is Jiva Tattva, and Lord Vishnu, he is not Jiva Tattva, he is Vishnu Tattva. And Lord Shiva has his own, also not Jiva, not Vishnu Tattva, has his own Tattva. So, just like on the altar also, here we have picture Pancha Tattva. Pancha Tattva means 5 personalities are there. But how many tattvas do they represent? In Pancha Tattva, there are how many tattvas are represented? Yeah. Huh? 5. 3 tattvas. Krishna, the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaita, they are in the category of Purusha. Vishnu Tattva. Yeah, completely transcendental. Whereas what is it? Vadadhar is Shakti Tattva. And Srivas, Jiva Tattva. Yeah. So learning about Tattva is actually very important. Just yesterday or the day before, we were reading in the purport how real knowledge, real understanding, real proper understanding, according to Vaishnava, is Prabhupada was explaining how in the body there are two atmas, two main. Actually, there are many living entities, many atmas, two main atmas. What are the 2 atmas in the body? There is Jivatma, Jivatma and Paramatma. And where they are located? In the heart. They are located in the heart, yes. So this has been explained here that the Lord, although he accepts the position of Vishnu Tattva, or rather incarnation in the mode of goodness, he remains completely transcendental, and therefore Vishnu, who is an expansion of Krishna, never comes in contact with the material energy. Rather, when Vishnu, Mahavishnu, it is nicely explained in the Bhagavatam, through his glance impregnates the material energy, Mahatattva. And that glance of the Lord is Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is a transformation of Lord Vishnu. Lord Shiva is practically, Prabhupada explains, Lord Shiva is practically Vishnu. But there is a difference. Yeah. And that difference, of course, Prabhupada explains, our acharyas explain, it's like the difference between milk and yogurt, right? Yeah. They have different function. So, jiva, we are all jiva. We come in contact with the material energy. That is our problem. Because we're very small, we fall under the influence of the gunas, the modes of material nature. And that is our main problem in the material world, is being influenced by the modes of material nature. But there is a system by which we can disconnect or disassociate ourselves with these modes of material nature. That's nicely explained actually in so many places. One that comes to mind is in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna begins to explain to Arjuna about transcendental knowledge. Param bhuya prabhakshami jnananam jnanamutamam. I shall now explain to you the topmost knowledge, topmost transcendental knowledge. Param bhuya prabhakshami jnananam jnanamutamam yad kyadva munaya sarve param siddhim ito gataha. Param siddhim, one who knows about this knowledge, one who cultivates this knowledge, which was the case since time immemorial. All great munaya, all great sages, all great saintly persons who have cultivated this knowledge, then the result, param siddhim mitogata, they have attained their param siddhi. Just like we have, we say, we are speaking about nitya siddha. Param siddhim itogataha. Then in the very next verse, Krishna explains, itas jnanam upasritya mama sadharmyam agataha. By taking shelter of this knowledge, that is 14, we can read it, 14:2. By cultivating, by deepening our understanding of this knowledge, by realizing mama sadharmyam agataha. Krishna explains sadharmya. Sadharmya means one's original nature. Krishna is explaining, we will attain our original nature. This is how we get out of the material entanglement. Idam jnanam upasritya mama sadharmyam agataha. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, Krishna is explaining, by becoming fixed in this knowledge. What is fixed in the knowledge? By coming to the level of nistha. Nistha in the 9 levels of devotional service, 9 levels of advancement, beginning with Shraddha, Tato Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nistha. Nistha means this here, by becoming fixed in this knowledge. Then what will happen, Krishna is explaining, by becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the supreme, to the transcendental nature, which is like my own nature. Yeah, we can again regain our original nature. That original nature actually there. The spirit soul is already within us. We are that spirit soul. Yeah. But due to the covering of Maya, the guna, material nature, yeah, not able to realize. So this is this is the mercy of the Lord, that He accepts through His external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. Yeah. But just like Krishna also explains in the Bhagavad Gita, although I come in the material world, Bhagavatam class, no, one bird is coming, showing interest in the Bhagavatam. Avajananti mambudha manushim tanumasritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheswaram. Yeah. Ordinary people, materialistic people, think that I become one of them, that I assume a material body, which is not the case. Yeah. So so that means that actually when the living entity cultivates this knowledge, this is also explained, when we develop that full consciousness of our being eternal service of Krishna, then also we no longer are influenced by the modes of material nature. It is possible, even in the material world, to not be influenced by the modes of material nature. And what is a sign of someone who's not influenced by the modes of material nature? His mind is completely free or liberated. No anxiety, no distress. Those descriptions are also given at the end of the 14th chapter. The characteristics of one who is not influenced by the modes of material nature. So when we know this, then we take the necessary steps to actually become less and less influenced by these modes of material nature. This is our problem. So this question was asked, Arjuna was asking Krishna, "Oh my dear Lord, This is text 21 of the 14th chapter. Arjuna Uvacha Kaya Lingaya Strin Gunanetan Atito Bhavati Prabhu Kimasara Katham Chaitams Trin Gunan Ativartate, which means, O my dear Lord, by what symptoms is one known who is transcendental to these modes of material nature? What are the signs or the symptoms? What is his behavior? And how does he transcend the modes of material nature? And actually, in 4 verses, Krishna replies. I won't read the Sanskrit because it's too long, but I'll just read the translation. The Lord replies to Arjuna's question as follows. He who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, nor longs for them when they disappear, who is seated like one unconcerned, undisturbed, being situated beyond these material reactions of the modes of nature, who remains firm, knowing that the modes alone are active, who regards alike pleasure and pain, and looks on a clod, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is wise and holds praise and blame to be the same, who is unchanged in honor and dishonor, who treats friends and foe alike, who has abandoned all fruitive undertakings. Such a man is said to have transcended the modes of material nature. So, we are living in the kingdom of Maya. Material nature is the kingdom of Maya. And therefore, Prabhupada is always reminding us that we have to fight against Maya, the influence of these modes of material nature. And the next verse is nicely explaining, because that was one of the questions of Krishna, of Arjuna rather, how to transcend these modes of material nature. And how to transcend is Mam sayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitam rama bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Yeah. So we'll just read the verse again here. Text number 18. The Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities, yet for the sake of creation, for the sake of the creation of the material world and its maintenance and annihilation, he accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. Okay. Any comments or questions on this? Yes.
Those living entities who are living in spiritual world, they have their own spiritual nature or dharma.
Those living entities in the spiritual world, they
have their own spiritual nature or dharma.
Yes, they're fully absorbed in their original constitutional position. Yeah.
And that nature is eternal and unchanged.
And that nature is
eternal.
So why they come in material world?
No. But when they come in when they come in contact with material world
Yes.
or material nature under the influence of different modes, they acquire different bodily bodily nature or bodily dharma.
Yeah.
But you mentioned in previous classes that the material nature is eternal, so therefore uh,
Yes.
Varnasrama is also eternal.
Material nature is eternal.
So then bodily dharma is also eternal.
Hmm?
Bodily dharma.
Bodily dharma.
I mean, Varnasrama is
Yeah,
eternal.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, yes. Um, Krishna is eternal. Everything that is connected with Krishna, which means his like prakriti, prakriti, as we hear from Bhagavad Gita, is also one of the eternal energies of Krishna. Yeah.
So when we travel through different bodies, we get different modes and consequently different bodily duties or dharma. So so my question is now being in this present body, is it possible that our bodily dharma or nature may change?
Whether it is possible that our bodily dharma may change.
Being in the present same body.
Actually, the if you're referring to like in the context of Varnasrama, the whole idea is to gradually become elevated from the lower modes to the higher modes of nature. So that means that as one's consciousness becomes elevated, changed from the lower consciousness to higher consciousness, because mode of ignorance is lower consciousness, mode of ignorance, mode of goodness is a higher consciousness. Then generally, this happens over a long period of time. Generally, within one lifetime, we have what we are under, primarily under the influence of some particular, more influenced by some particular modes of nature. Of course, and that generally remains like that. However, by coming in contact and cultivating this knowledge, we can transcend this. We can transcend the influence of these modes of material nature. But, for example, it is because of karma that we attain a particular body in a particular country, particular shape and whatnot, particular abilities, material abilities, uh, particular tendencies, etc. So, on the material level, it's not that when we take the spiritual life, our material body changes, or our tendencies change. But um, on the by developing a higher consciousness, uh, we can utilize whatever assets we have with this present body in Krishna's service. So these principles are eternal principles. It is not that on the bodily platform we are eternally connected with some particular mode of nature or some particular material kind of activity. But generally, for example, when somebody is fortunate to come in contact with Krishna consciousness, uh, there are two things, right? There's guna and karma, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. The whole system of Varna and Asrama is connected with guna and karma. Chatur Varnamaya system, guna karma vibhagashaha, guna and karma. So the guna has to do with the consciousness. The guna has to do with, if we are in material consciousness, the guna will be in relation to the modes of material nature. Quality of consciousness. For a materialistic person, he is forced to be under these three modes of material nature. If one comes in contact with this knowledge, then his guna will rise above these modes of material nature, although his karma may remain the same. Karma means in terms of material tendency or ability. For example, if someone is a carpenter, which is generally considered um, a material activity, manual labor is generally in the category of tamagun. But so these two things are there, guna and karma. Those who are in the lower modes of nature, who are not cultivating, who have not yet had the opportunity to cultivate Krishna consciousness, they will have such type of, let's say, nature, such type of activity. Those activities will not change when they cultivate this knowledge, or they may change, but not necessarily. For example, someone who comes in contact with Krishna consciousness, who let's say was a carpenter, he may, depending on his situation, he may continue to be a carpenter, but he will be a devotee carpenter. Or he may, for example, if such a person who has particular material abilities, if he joins as a full-time devotee, then he may become just completely absorbed in preaching. May still have that ability, but he will not be utilizing it, isn't it? So the guna and karma changes according to each individual. It changes in terms of whether one is a materialistic-minded person or whether one is a devotee. So the basic principles that are there, because your question was in terms of living entities in the spiritual world, they are eternally fixed in their dharma, which is totally spiritual because it's in the spiritual world. Whereas in the material world, we have, will be our main topic that we are discussing today in the conference we're having, the dual features of dharma in two features, isn't it? Dharma, for those of us who are here in the material world, we need to recognize and we need to understand the presence of these, the features of these two dharmas. The spiritual dharma of being an eternal servant of Krishna, and our material dharma, as long as we are in the material world, and especially connected with these modes of material nature. So both are eternal tattvas, which are again explained in the Bhagavad Gita, specifically in terms of the jiva. The jiva is eternally spiritual, eternally ankra, part and parcel of Krishna, meant to be engaged in Krishna's service, and therefore dependent. And the same with prakriti. Prakriti is different from jiva. Prakriti is matter, isn't it? But and that matter is also of a dependent nature. The jiva is, we discussed the other day, one is referred to as paraprakriti and aparaprakriti, like that, yeah. So the more we understand the workings of these different tattvas, and the more we understand clearly these two levels are two manifestations or two features of dharma, then more easily we can cope with the reality that is here in the material world. What is the reality in the material world? There is simultaneously matter and spirit, isn't it? So proper knowledge, as Krishna explained in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is to know what is matter, to know what is spirit, to know the origin of both, and the interaction or relationship between them, right? Yeah. So naturally, subject matter of dharma is yeah. Something else.
When a when a devotee renders his devotional service nicely, he will get appreciation from his guru and other devotees, which may trigger his ego and pride. What he has to do for not falling down into that ego and pride?
What steps does a devotee need to take to avoid becoming proud? If by performing nicely his devotional service, he sometimes gets praised by guru or by other devotees. He has to really meditate on his fallen condition. We have to understand that yes, that is the influence of Maya. Very easily we forget our real position as being, part and parcel of Krishna. Number one. Secondly, we forget also that whether in this lifetime or definitely in previous lifetimes, we have, because of having forgotten Krishna, we have engaged in all kinds of adharmic activities, sinful activities. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains how the greatest sin we have committed, the greatest sin of all living entities, is to have rejected Krishna, isn't it? So we need to meditate on, we need to remind ourselves, even though such praise may occasionally come, and definitely if we are not cautious, the tendency will be to become proud. As it is explained, pride actually precedes a fall down. Those who are proud, they will generally at some point fall from their position, because as Krishna also explains in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, I am revealing this knowledge to you because you are not proud, actually. So we have to be cautious. Actually, we have no reason to be proud. We are, as Prabhupada nicely explains, because we have come here in the material world being a prison house, that means we're all criminals. We have nothing to be proud of. So therefore, it is also enjoined in the Shastra that one should always keep in mind our fallen condition, and this will help us to avoid unnecessarily becoming proud. So we should meditate on our on our condition as being here in the material world, having forsaken our original position as eternal servant of Krishna, and that is described as the sign of advanced devotees. Advanced devotees, they're very conscious of their fallen condition, having left Krishna, or having come in this material world, or having been engaged in sinful activities, etc., in previous lives. Yeah. So so a devotee is especially mindful, remembering, and therefore doesn't fall into any trap if at times he happens to be praise for whatever activity he might be doing. Yeah. Okay, it is that time. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Gaur Premanande. Who was asking that question?
Shrutakirti Prabhu.
Sutta Kirti. Hare